Welcome to Rights and Remedies, the podcast where we explore the law, the fight for justice, and healing. I'm Allison Mahoney, your host and a lawyer dedicated to fighting for the rights of survivors of domestic and sexual abuse, as well as children harmed by the child welfare system. Each week, we delve into legal battles and court cases, share powerful stories that demand change, and spotlight the cutting-edge practices that are helping victims on their journey to healing. So, if you're ready to dive into the intersection of advocacy and healing, subscribe to Rights and Remedies today. New episodes are released weekly, and we can't wait to have you join the conversation. Together, we can make a difference. Welcome back to Rights and Remedies. Before we begin today's episode, please be advised that we will be discussing intimate partner violence, which may be triggering for some listeners. If you need to take a break or skip this episode, please do so and make sure to prioritize your own well-being. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce my guests. We have the founders of Daniel's Voice. I have Linee Walker and Lillie Floyd here with me. Welcome, you guys. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Of course, of course. So to start, I think it would be helpful if you could explain to the listeners, what is Daniel's Voice?
So hello, I'm Linee Walker, and thanks again for inviting me on. So Daniel's Voice is an advocacy for men and their families that have been victims of domestic violence by mostly a female partner is what our
mission was and how we started.
Yeah, I lost my train of thought. Is what our sector is about. But we know that domestic violence happens to men from other men as well. But our focus on this is from the females, with female violence coming toward.
Perfect. And is Daniel's Voice a nonprofit or a for-profit organization?
Yes. So we have two sectors. Daniel's Voice is actually a LLC, which is going to be the umbrella for different sectors of Daniel's Voice. And we'll talk a little bit more about the Daniel's Den portion, which is our nonprofit.
Okay. And to be clear, so you focus on situations where males are victims of intimate partner violence, right?
Yes. Correct.
Okay. And before we get into talking more about the organization, how do you two know each other? And what are your backgrounds?
I met Linee my first year teaching, special education teacher. And that's how we met as coworkers and helping children through Therapeutic Learning Center.
Amazing.
Yes. And I'm Linee, and I am a certified instructional assistant. And like Lillie said, we met each other at the elementary school that we was working together. And we became friends, co-workers, and now business partners.
Incredible. How long ago did you start Daniel's Voice?
Daniel's Voice have only been in existence for a year now, started in November of 2023.
Who is Daniel and what inspired you to start Daniel's Voice?
Yes, thank you. So Daniel, his name is Daniel Walker. I'm Daniel's mother. So he was my son, my firstborn child. And he was murdered last year by his female domestic partner. And that is what led me to start advocacy in his honor, to be able to hopefully save other men from losing their life, or for them to be able to recognize the different signs and dangers of an unhealthy relationship, and for them to know that it's okay for them to speak up and speak out about what's happening to them, that they're not alone, that it's people out here that actually care about their well-being.
I'm so sorry for your loss. I can't imagine how traumatic and heartbreaking that must be, but it's really impressive that you turned around and started this organization in his name and with his name and in the title of it to try and help others. So can you tell me a little bit about, just to humanize him, what Daniel was like? What kind of person was he?
Yes, so Daniel was a very soft-spoken gentleman, very respectful. Yeah, he was only 26 years old. He had a lot going on for him. He had moved out to Arizona to further his financial situation and just to get more experience in life. He was a loving brother. He was a brother, of course, a son, a grandson, had very close relationship with his grandmother and all the entire family, but really had a very close relationship with his grandmother. And he was the type of person that he was advancing and he wanted to bring other people along with him. So he reached back down like they say we should do. Reach back down and bring people up. If you're up, you bring people up. And that was just the type of person that Daniel was. He always had this handsome, beautiful smile on his face. And his voice was so gentle that a lot of times as his mother, I had to say, speak up, son. I can't hear you. But that was just how gentle Daniel was.
I can really feel your love and pride, love for him and pride in him in the way that you speak about him. Lillie, did you know Daniel?
I did know Daniel. We got the chance to meet. Wow, that was about 10, 11 years ago. And I had a chance to meet him. And he had quickly adopted my son as his little brother, which was 5. And 5 and 6-year-olds always want to tag along. And Daniel has 2 other brothers. And they were like, no, he's too little. And Daniel's like, come on, get in the car. And so he was that person to always keep equal, to always keep balance, never made a fuss, never made a fight, always willing to help anybody with his mom at church, everywhere. He was just a remarkable guy.
And you two are based in North Carolina, right?
Yes.
Okay. So we had talked prior to this episode or this interview about how usually when we hear about domestic violence and advocacy in the domestic violence space, typically we hear conversations about female victims rather than male victims. And so I'd like to break that down a little bit. And first of all, talk about warning signs. Are the warning signs different in a situation where a male is a victim? And were there any warning signs in hindsight that something was wrong?
Okay, I believe both of us would like to answer a little bit on that question. And I will start. As Daniel's mother, I did not have the warning signs. As far as for me, I had the opportunity to actually go visit Daniel probably about within that month before he was murdered. And I did not pick up the warning signs when I was there. He never voiced anything with me. As I look back, it is little small things that I may be able to say could have been a little warning signs. I have to be really careful of what I speak because the case is still ongoing. But overall, the warning signs for me particular was not there. And so Daniel's death and how he died is all new to me. I didn't know that he was getting abused until after the fact, things that I've learned after the fact. As speaking with a couple of his friends, Daniel did mention he could be in an unhealthy relationship to a couple of his male friends. And they kind of jokingly about it, didn't really think much of it, and they just continued on with a different conversation. So the warning signs may have been there, but if you've never been in that situation or don't know what that situation looks like, it's hard to know that that is actually a warning sign.
Right. And that's one of the problems with intimate partner violence is it happens so often behind closed doors. And in many cases, it's a series of small things that are happening over time. And when you look at it just on an isolated basis, it doesn't seem like it's anything that significant. Are you or someone you love a victim of sexual assault, cybersexual abuse, domestic violence, or campus dating violence? At ALM Law, we're here to help you regain control and take action. With expertise in Colorado, Illinois, and New York, our compassionate attorneys understand the challenges you're facing. That's why we're offering a free 15-minute consultation to answer your questions and help you understand your options. Just mention this podcast, Rights and Remedies. Take the first step towards justice today. Call ALM Law at 970-315-5152 or visit us at almlawllc.com. You're not alone. Let us stand with you. Lillie, did you want to add something?
Yes, I just wanted to say that it's not a difference between female and male abuse. Control over somebody is control over someone. And I feel everyone has the right to feel safe at home, regardless of your sex, your preference of the opposite sex or the same sex. I think we have to get into this frame of mind that everyone has the right to be feeling safe at home. And take away that double standard, like, oh, it's nothing, just man up, it's not a big deal. I think we kind of shrug it off as a culture, but it has lasting effects, as we can see now.
Yeah. And so to explore that a little bit more deeply, the idea of man up, shrug it off, do you think that males who are victims are disclosing the abuse to people and it's just being disregarded? Or do you think they're not even disclosing it because they feel like they shouldn't be disclosing it because they're a man and shouldn't be in that situation or something like that, like some kind of societal pressure that keeps them quiet?
I feel like they express it to themselves or to their group of guys together. And I think they do it in a joking manner to not see the big picture of it all. But then I always have to say, hey, but if that was a woman, where would we be? And so we have to really think about, no one has the right to put their hands on you. Nobody has the right to try to control you or manipulate you in any way. And so I think we have to get down to it's human rights and not just women's rights or men's rights. It's a basic human right for everyone to have a say and be heard.
And how do we get there? What are some things that you both are doing or your organization is doing to resolve even just that piece of men's disclosures kind of not being taken as seriously as they should be or recognized for what they are?
So we're going to do that with Daniel's then.
Yeah, so we both
we're going to start with Daniel's then. And we have to take a different approach to the therapy world. Men sometimes do not like to disclose their trauma or incidents one-on-one. So we're trying to figure out how to make it, we are figuring out how to make it into a relaxing place where they can still have the therapy they need, but still don't have to feel uncomfortable of going and still get the resources they need and tell their story.
Will it be more of a group setting then?
Group and individual. And it's not going to look like your typical therapy room, all white with the white walls and just you and your doctor. I have a special education background. So as for my kids, I was like, sometimes you have to play games. So I don't feel like it's anything wrong with a pool table in the middle of a therapy just because it's easier sometimes to talk about things when you're actually doing other things to process it and you're not as guarded. And as men, they are guarded because of the double standards, for one. For two, if they call for help and actually reach out to the police like Daniel did, sometimes they look like, oh, you have it, you're big enough to take it. Or two, they might not call because of their relationship with the police beforehand.
And we had spoken about that as well, about males and especially Black males being fearful of going to law enforcement. Either of you talk a little bit more about that and what steps you see us being able to take or your organization being able to take to help resolve that?
Yes, so I think it's all have to do with the stereotyping, where Black males seem to automatically be stereotyped, not only in domestic situations, but just at traffic stops and, just walking into a business establishment. They stereotype Black males, Black females as well. And the one way that we are trying to tackle that is to involve the local law enforcement officers into what we're trying to do. We're also traveling to learn more about different states. Like we had went to Chicago to see how Chicago works, work, how the police department there and how the lawyers, how they represent domestic violence victims. So we definitely want to have open discussions that involves law enforcement and lawyers and judges, just like the event that we attended. Some of our goals that we had already incorporated. And so it was like a wow moment for us when we actually went there and said, wow, this is what we've actually been working on and trying to gather and put together, and just to see it already kind of in working into the atmosphere, it was a great feeling to experience.
Yep. And the event that Linee is referring to, there was a domestic violence conference in Chicago in honor of Domestic Violence Awareness Month with a number of different speakers, advocates, people from law enforcement, judges, and that's where we connected. But I agree, it was very inspiring to see all of those different players come together with the goal of trying to prevent tragedies like what happened to Daniel.
And to piggyback off that conference, I love how
And if you don't mind, if I could just backtrack one quick second, as far as I've been trying to collect data whenever I go to an event. I've hosted several events myself, and I've attended other little small events, and I pass out my flyer everywhere. I pass out my flyers at the gas stations, at the grocery stores, everywhere I have contact with a male. I'm like, here, right in your face, right? And again, it goes back to them realizing or recognizing, yes, I have been this victim of domestic violence, because when I open it up and I say, I have a little survey that I have them, and one of the questions is, have I ever been a victim of domestic violence? And they say no. And I said, wait, do you know what domestic violence is? What does it consist of? I'm like hitting, slapping, destroying your property. All those things fit in that category. So I tell them, I say, before you answer that question, really look into it, and see, have I been affected? And so just trying to gather that research and that data from males has been even more rewarding, because when I'm going to say, Miss Allison, probably the 3 out of 10 people that I have come in contact with have said, wow, I have been in this situation and you are doing a great thing. And it makes, again, just like, okay, this is really a needed topic that has been swept under the rug long enough. Not that we're trying to take anything away from a woman being abused, but the men have to know that their life is just as valuable to this world than anybody else's. And it's time for them to start speaking up so that maybe their situation can help someone else's situation. And then we'll get some kind of, not complete leverage, but a little bit better on the statistics of not that 1 to 7 to more like that 3 to 9 or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And I love how you're both really breaking this down and understanding we need to collect the data. We need to educate people so that they know if they even are a victim of domestic violence. And that is evolving as new forms of abuse are now popping up with technology affecting or playing a role in domestic violence cases. And then beyond that, understanding how to reach potential victims and how to start having the conversation and helping them heal. And on top of that, working with the community, law enforcement, you both have your hands full. I love what you're doing though, and really admire how holistic approach that you're taking to this. And Lillie, I think you were going to say something.
Yes, I think our biggest eye opener, and we got it from the summit when we met, is first, if we cure this, how many other things do we cure in general? And I think that was our eye opener, like, oh, we can have healthier families out here, more productive children if we don't have this abuse. And it doesn't necessarily have to be from male to female, or it can also be like we had at the summit, child abuse when you were younger. And now that you're older and you're a man and have to figure that out, it's a lot. And so I think we really have to put our minds together. It's not a one click fix of anything now, but it's going to take some time. But we were very inspired by places like Chicago, that if the police are called for any disturbance at all, guns are removed from the house. I love that. How many lives can be saved off of that one rule if that was in all 50 states?
Does North Carolina have?
We do not have that rule.
We do not. Well, maybe you can advocate for a change in that space. I'm curious, as friends and family members of someone who was lost as the result of a very severe form of domestic violence, did you feel like you had trouble or any issues accessing support and services and, I guess, a community to help support you because Daniel was a male victim?
So yes, I feel like I'd be at a standstill a lot. One, considering that his incident happened across country in Arizona, and I'm here in North Carolina. So there, one is the most major barrier.
Yeah.
I have a kid that's working with me from there, but as far as any outside agencies, I haven't really been able to find that many that work across state lines. One visit when I was in Arizona, I went to a building. Well, I actually went to look for legal aid, and they didn't, of course, offer it to me because I wasn't a resident there. But they just kind of referred me to an advocacy group, and so that's online. And I've listened in and chimed in with them, and it's more of just the open of lost one. So it's not really geared to what I'm looking for in particular, but it's still helpful to hear other people's stories. But other than that, it has been very challenging to get the help and the resources and just phone numbers in general, people who can help with not only Daniel's case, but that may be able to steer me in the right direction to be able to help Daniel's voice and Daniel's then become successful as well.
Well, if any listeners have resources for them, we'll have contact information in the show notes. So please reach out. And I'm sorry to hear that you had that experience. I wish I could say that it's likely uncommon, but I think it's probably a common experience that people have. And it's especially unfortunate because you're navigating a situation where there's a lot of trauma and heartbreak. And the last thing you want to have to do is find all of these different pieces of information and figure out what you have to do. So, but again, I think that the fact that you're creating this organization where you can help other people who maybe are in your situation or your son's situation is really incredible. Can you both tell me what your ultimate goals are? What's the big dream with Daniel's Voice?
Bringing awareness the men's rights and what they need and help them be an advocate, and not just for men, but also the LGBTQ as well.
And I think that when we had spoken before, you said that you wanted to encourage men to speak up. Can you talk about what you want that to look like down the road, like in a perfect world?
Only we do wish that the world was perfect. I know I wish that the world was so perfect. But just to be able to them to have open, honest conversations is what I'm really aiming for. Because once they start having open, honest conversations with themselves as adult men, they will be more open to really sit their young men down and speak to them about the rights, the wrongs, how to handle, how to communicate these things with the proper people. You know, sometimes people just don't know who they can go to. Some people don't know who they can trust, you know, so they withhold it in. So hopefully, and not hopefully, but prayerfully, I will be able, or Daniel's voice will be able to crack that open. It's almost like we want to crack that safe and say, this is what you need to do. We're here for you. Just open it up, open up that wound. The way you're going to heal, the way you're going to get through it is to speak on it.
I imagine that part of the hope is seeing if men or males see examples of other males who are willing to open up and address their trauma in the way that Daniel's voice is able to provide support with Daniel's den and therapy and whatnot, that maybe it'll encourage others who come after them to do the same, which would be really amazing. You had mentioned just anecdotally that you thought it was about 3 or so out of 10 people males that you've spoken to who have said, oh yeah, I actually probably am a victim of domestic violence. How big do both of you think this problem is?
My number is greater. I think out of 5 men I talked to, 5 of them have been in some situations. So I think it's a lot bigger. And I think we can't even start to figure out how many numbers, because of the data is not there or not out and open to access. But I think this is a bigger problem than what we can even imagine.
And are there males or male survivors who are working with your organization as you build it?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So I imagine they're probably providing a different take on some of the things that you could do because they're offering a male's perspective. Is that right?
Correct. And we need that because us being females are at a disadvantage for that. But we don't want any mistakes to happen just because of our oversights. So we're trying to pick each other's minds, trying to pick the male's minds and try to really make it work.
Right. And that's the part, and that's where Daniel's Den is going to come into play. Like Lillie said, we're setting it up to where their atmosphere is going to be what they're accustomed to. Like they're accustomed to maybe going to a cigar bar and speaking, you know, just hanging out, like just have an open conversation with the people that they're used to seeing there. They may be used to going to a pre-football game party and just speaking. So we want to invite them into a space that they will feel comfortable, you know, with men. Not necessarily, not saying that there are never going to be any women involved. I'm not saying that, you know, as far as, you know, trying to help them get to where they need to be, but we're really like kind of focusing on creating that safe place where men feel like, hey, I can speak to this to another male and he is going to accept it without judgment and without, you know, feeling like I'm weak, you know, and might say, hey man, yeah, I've been through that as well. Let's talk about it. You know, so that again, that's what one of our goals is, just to be able to start having those open-end conversations and start some healing going on.
I think you guys are going to do incredible things. I really do. What message would you leave for males who might be in an abusive relationship or an abusive situation right now? What advice would you give, or what message of hope would you give them?
Well, I would say unsilence your voice. That is what something. Can I hold up my brochure?
Yeah, of course.
So that is what I have on the back of my brochure. And it just says, speak up, seek help. Abuse lives in secrecy. Unsilence your voice. You are worth it. And here I have a few things here that talks about that. And I'll just read a couple, not all of them. Say, defend your rights, acknowledge the situation, know your worth, integrity matters, end the excuses, and execute your plan to get out that situation. Love yourself enough to get out that situation. Balance, but stop. You have to speak up against your abuser. Invest in yourself and convey your story, because your story may just help save someone else's life. It might save your brother's life. It might save your nephew's life.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And again, in the show notes, we'll link to information about the organization so that the listeners will have access to whatever resources Daniel's Voice has out there, and ways for them to get in touch with both of you, which brings me to the question, how do listeners find and support Daniel's Voice?
Okay, so we do have a contact number, and that is area code 334-509-0139. You can also contact us by mail at P.O. Box 123, Garner, NC 27529. And we also have a Facebook right now, which is called Daniel's Voice, but it's spelled DANIELS voice. And we are working in the works of getting our Daniel's Den website and everything done. Again, this is all new. It's still fresh. I must say, being with the trial is still on. This is still very fresh to me. And to be able to see the progress that we have made with both Daniel's Voice and Daniel's Den within 1 year's time, I am so honored to be able to be doing this, to be able to help other men victims.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And it's true. You have both accomplished a lot in a short period of time and I believe it's a criminal case that's pending. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, a criminal case is pending while you're, I'm sure, grieving and still coping with his loss. Yeah. So same thing I said before, if listeners have resources that can help these ladies as they're building out their company, please reach out and offer whatever support that you can. Thank you both so much for taking the time to be here, for sharing Daniel's story, your stories, and very excited to see what comes of Daniel's Voice. I think you're going to accomplish a lot of really great things and help a lot of people.
Thank you.
Yeah, but thank you again for having us on. We appreciate that. I appreciate this so much. You just don't know how happy I've been, and I've been so excited. I think I told the whole world already. We was having interviews, so I'm so incredibly grateful, and I really mean that from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for joining us on Rights and Remedies. I hope today's episode gave you valuable insights into the legal issues facing victims and the pathways to healing. Remember, you're not alone in this journey. Whether you're a survivor, an advocate, or someone looking to learn more, we're here to support and empower you. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with others. You can also follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn at ALM Law LLC for updates, resources, and more. Until next time, take care and remember that together we can make a difference.